Eastlink Community TV follows public health and safety COVID-19 guidelines on all live and pre-recorded productions. This show is live. Despite our best efforts, anything can happen. Some viewers may be offended. Viewer discretion is advised.
The Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia, in collaboration with the Department of National Defence, are holding this historic event to honor and remember Number 2 Construction Battalion, including an apology from the federal government.
Hi, welcome to the Number 2 Construction Battalion National Apology Event on Eastlink Community TV. I'm Morgan Jessam. So glad that you could all join us for this monumental occasion. I'm lucky enough to be joined here by my co-host and good friend, Cecil Wright.
Yeah, this is just so emotional for me even right now. And I'm not even connected to anybody from the battalion in any way, shape, or form. But speaking on behalf of people I've already talked to about this event, this is going to be a spectacular day, Morgan.
Absolutely. And before we get too much into it, we're going to toss it over to the third member of our broadcast team, Riel Simone. Riel?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Morgan and Cecil. It's an honor to be here today and be a part of the team. And I'd also like to throw a thank you out there to all of our cultural museums who are broadcasting this as well for their communities. During this event, I will have the opportunity to interview some of the direct descendants and those involved in bringing this apology to fruition. So please stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, Riel. So glad to work with you again. And Cecil, we are at the TAC Grounds in Truro, Nova Scotia. Why is this place so significant to the Number 2 Construction Battalion?
Well, this is where the battalion actually did their training. And, you know, the fact that we went around earlier and saw all the banners on the signposts and the poles just to commemorate what they did, not only for Canada, but specifically for the town of Truro, because like we said, this is where they train. Now, they weren't formed here, but this is where they came to get all their training, and then they went out and they did it. They did it, man. They did it.
They did, and the town of Truro is buzzing. The TAC Grounds are buzzing. Even yesterday when everyone was setting up, there were service members around, and they were telling us how honored they are to be here. And it really does feel like everyone here is so appreciative to be here. And the town of Truro, like you mentioned, the banners. If you go down Prince Street, there's banners lining the sides of the road.
Well, and also the fact that William White, one of the members of the battalion, was from Truro and ended up, after he gave all his service, as the pastor at Zion Baptist Church. I mean, you know, to this day, that's probably the most popular Baptist church in this town. So, you know, the fact that he is from here, father of Portia White, and so on and so forth. Yes.
Yeah, I just found that out yesterday. And I believe you can see now the parade that is coming down Prince Street in Truro with a lot of service members involved in the parade, and you should be seeing that now. So Cecil, we mentioned Portia White. She was a trailblazer herself, much like her father, and I'm sure he instilled that in her with his tenacity and his self-resilience.
Well, and also that church connection cannot be overstated, because, you know, she of course would have started singing in the church, which is why, you know, there's going to be some events that happen later that we'll discuss, but they're very, very important in connection to this event. The relationship between the Black Battalion and the church, I mean, that was really largely their only sense of support, was church and family back in the day when they faced such evil racism.
Absolutely. And right now we're going to throw it to Riel Simone. She has her first interview.
Thank you so much, Morgan and Cecil. So I have the opportunity now to speak to Lindsay Ruck. Now, Lindsay is an educator and a storyteller, and we actually had an opportunity to hear her speak at the Pictou event that took place for the unveiling of the new monument there. And Lindsay had given us a wonderful story about her as a young child and how the impact that going to some of the Pictou events really had on her. Hey, Lindsay, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. It's always a pleasure to get to speak to you. So I just wanted to ask you, what does this mean to your family, your late great-grandfather, Calvin Ruck, your father, Doug Ruck, and all of the work that was put into?
It's incredibly significant. The emotions are high for us today. We go back to my grandfather sitting at his dining room table in Dartmouth, piecing together this story like a puzzle. And he was so determined to put faces to this story, to put names to this story. So the fact that we are now on a national platform and that people are taking notice from across the country, when you think back to 1986 when his book came out, it's incredible. It's incredible for my family, and it's incredible for those direct descendants who have had to hear the story over and over again, and now we're sharing it with the country. So it's amazing.
It is amazing, and it's taken this long, but now we're here, and we have this very special day. The No. 2 Construction Battalion is being honored, and I'm so happy for you to share all of that with us, and I hope you really do enjoy this event today.
Thank you. I'm excited. It's going to be a good day.
Yes, and you and your family are all here and ready.
We are. My grandmother is here, my mother is here, my sister is here, my father is speaking, so we're on the edge of our seat, and we're just excited to hear what will be said, and it's, yeah.
So meaningful.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's always lovely to talk to you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, and we're going to send it back to Morgan and Cecil.
Thank you, Riel. Now, Cecil, you have a relationship with the Ruck family, so particularly Calvin Ruck. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Senator Calvin Ruck,
Yeah.
which I'm so proud of him, and I'll get to my relationship with him in a second, but I'm so proud of him for being appointed as a senator. My only wish is that he was appointed as a senator when he was younger, so that all the great work that he did would have been recognized for a lot longer period of time. But when I think of Senator Calvin Ruck, it just immediately puts a smile on my face, because he was such an upbeat man and always was all about education. Would ask me about my children, how they were doing grade-wise, you know, and wanted me to pass that on to them, to pass on to their children. So to me, he was an inspiration, not only for the research that he did on the Black Battalion and the book that he wrote on the Black Battalion, but for the message that he was delivering to all the younger kids in the Black community.
Absolutely. Now you can hear behind us, the parade has entered the TAC grounds. People are standing up, they're enjoying it, and this parade is filled with a lot of Black service members.
Yes.
From in particular, the Black Veterans Group. Now, I imagine this event is in particular very important to them.
Well, they're all retired members of the Canadian Forces, so you know that just being here, not only in front of all these people, but all these dignitaries, and because of the special meeting, boy, that's really something.
Absolutely. You also got Highlanders involved. It's not a Nova Scotia event unless you get the pipes and drums out.
Yeah, and they're based out of Truro, right here in Truro, Nova Scotia, with a little help from Cape Breton, because it is a provincial thing. It's not just the Truro.
We also got the Legion involved and the RCMP as well as the police. So everyone's really coming together for this parade.
And as well, something that is home to me because I had a cousin who served, the Royal Canadian Navy is also involved in this, and I think that is just fabulous.
Yeah, it's getting really loud. The parade, I believe, is about to pass us. But what I really enjoy is that Black service members are at the forefront of this parade.
I couldn't hear a word you said because it's just so loud here. The pipers are going right by us right now. You can probably see them, and I'm telling you, this is unbelievable. The pomp and circumstance. And here are the Black veterans.
Yeah. The crowd is clapping. Everyone knows how monumental this event is, not just for service members, but the entire community as well.
And I believe that the Black members are dressed in ceremonial garb, correct?
It's great to see the elders in the community as well being involved.
I almost want to stop broadcasting so I can stand up and salute them myself. Here comes members of the RCMP.
Yeah. Members of color as well.
And a couple members from the Truro Police Department.
Right. I feel like we should shout out the members of Truro who are keeping this city safe right now because the streets are locked down.
Oh, yeah.
We had to do loops around the block to even get in here.
I was going to say, nobody knows how locked down it is more than we do. Trying to come here this morning, it was unbelievably tight.
If anything we've learned through this process is the military is very well organized and you have to respect it.
They call it regimented for a reason, don't they?
That's right.
Yeah. We also should mention the Stadacona Band. I don't know, maybe that's what you were saying earlier when I couldn't hear you. The Stadacona Band of the Royal Canadian Navy is participating.
And we have the Legion members bringing up the rear here for the parade. That's amazing.
Well, that is truly special. And now I'm assuming they're going to go around one more time. Is that the plan?
I'm not sure, but we'll see.
All right. Well, apparently they're going to be halting shortly.
Hey, at least the wind is providing some nice visuals of the flags.
Yes. Yes.
All right, and Riel has another interview for us. Riel?
Hi there. Wow, everyone. That was an emotional march there. Seeing those men dressed in the same uniforms that the No. 2 Construction Battalion were wearing, it truly had me emotional in that moment. And just the sound, the vibrations underneath my feet, it truly was amazing. So now I'm here standing with Mary Beth Sutherland. Mary Beth, thank you so much. And I just want you to maybe let the folks know at home what your connection is with the No. 2 Construction Battalion.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be here. My grandfather, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Hugh Sutherland, was the commanding officer, and he would have been so proud of today. It's wonderful that we are able to come and celebrate the No. 2 Construction Battalion in such a manner.
Yeah, it's definitely, and your grandfather, such an ally, someone who definitely saw what needed to change when it came to the men of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. And last night we had an opportunity to hear some of the words that he had wrote himself in a letter, sort of demanding, things to be done for the No. 2 Construction Battalion. And it was wonderful to hear those words. And you also mentioned a chest that you had found. If you could speak on that.
Yes. Several years ago, the late George Borden had contacted me when they were first planning the 100th anniversary of the No. 2 Construction Battalion, and so I recalled a few things from when I was young and my grandfather was still living, and I thought, I remember this trunk, and I'll go have a look. And yes, it said No. 2 Construction Battalion. It was my grandfather's trunk, but in it was items that he had saved from his days with the No. 2. So he had a lot of photographs, which have been used quite widely, and it's wonderful that he's able to pass on that legacy through those photos, but he also had kept some other miscellaneous papers and that gave a little bit more insight into the battalion and what those men, both men and the officers, went through. It wasn't an easy time for them, any of them. And to have been a black man at that time wanting to enlist and then being turned away, it's just hard to think of it at this time. But they forged ahead, they formed the battalion, and they went overseas, they did their duty, and they did it with, wonderful attitude. And, we even have the mayor from one of the little communities in France here with us today. And the communities remember them. In fact, they have put a monument up to the No. 2 Battalion over in France. So obviously the men left an impact there. But my grandfather was very proud to have been the commanding officer and be associated with them.
Wow, what a family connection to have, and it really goes to show, allyship is very important, and the fact that he took it upon himself to really fight for those men to just get the bare necessities to be able to survive out there, and then of course had so much passion and respect for them as well. I thank you, and I thank your family for keeping those photos and that information safe so that we could share it today with everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Beth.
Okay.
Enjoy the ceremony.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much to Mary Beth, her grandfather as well, and it just says a lot about how much respect there is for the No. 2 Construction Battalion. So I'll throw it back to you, Morgan and Cecil.
Thank you, Riel. Yeah, so right now they're welcoming in the direct descendants. That's amazing. Yeah. That's what this event is for. It's for the descendants, it's for the men, it's for the families.
And, of course, this regiment, which is what I like to call them, was established in Pictou. So some of the descendants, the direct descendants, are from Pictou even right now today. So that's really exciting for us.
Yeah, I'm not sure if people know, but recruiting for the No. 2 Construction Battalion started in Nova Scotia before it moved to Ontario and Quebec and beyond that. And yeah, you mentioned Pictou is where they first trained. It's also where they shipped off in 1916. And recently they had an event in Pictou where they updated a monument and a plaque. Yes. They've added a QR code. So you can scan the QR code and find out some more information. So we're really using technology to learn a little bit more about the No. 2 Construction Battalion.
And the direct descendants who are coming in right now are receiving a huge round of applause, and deservedly so, because they have been steadfast into making sure that this day came to fruition. So they deserve a lot of credit, as do other people who we'll get to later.
Absolutely. During my research, there was a lot of planning with the descendants. They were very involved in the planning of this event, and they provided new information about the men, things that were not even known. So their value to this cannot be understated.
Well, they're the ones who had the historical facts. Was family members and direct descendants who kept track and kept note, hoping that someday all those things like the newspaper clippings would come in handy, you know, leading to some event like this.
Yeah, and I'm sure the info that they provided went along with the Pictou event. There was 200 people in attendance. It's pretty good.
That's good for a small little town. Yeah, that's very good. And someday I hope that we get an opportunity to go to Pictou to cover the next event, like next year.
Absolutely, and I mean, it was time for an update on the monument. It was made the original was made in 1993, so we're updating it, putting new info in, and once again, there is a QR code, so if you're visiting that site, scan it, you can find out some more information.
And for those of us who live in the metro area, like you or I, you can find out more information at the Black Cultural Center of Nova Scotia.
That's right.
About the fantastic role that the town of Pictou has played in the No. 2 Construction Battalion.
That's right. The Black Cultural Center just unveiled a new interactive exhibit. It's brand new upstairs. If you haven't seen it, go see it. It's brand new, open. And yeah, if you haven't been to the Black Cultural Center at all, definitely check it out. It is the best place to find Nova Scotia Black history.
You know, I've got to admit that I've been to the Black Cultural Center hundreds of times, and each time I have an opportunity to go and have a look around, I find something new that I either didn't see before or didn't know about. And, you know, I'm a guy who's been there a lot, and still finding out new things means that everybody needs to go visit this iconic center so that they too can learn some more about the deep Black history here in Nova Scotia.
Absolutely, and Rael mentioned it earlier, but this is being broadcast, and there are other Black cultural centers around Canada that are watching this. So shout out to you and the work that you're doing, and we appreciate you.
And we also want to send a shout out to the other Eastlink subscribers who are watching us in other provinces. Hope you appreciate the opportunity to see this fantastic event, because I'm telling you, my mind is blown.
Me too.
This is incredible.
Yes, I wasn't ready for the parade to go by, but right now, Riel has another guest.
Thank you so much, Morgan and Cecil. And yes, I do have another guest, and this is a very special guest. I had the opportunity to speak with him last night, a direct descendant of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. I'm sitting here with Mr. Blair Dixon. Hey, how are you doing today?
Oh, very well, very well.
That's great to hear.
Well.
And you had a great time last night, you were saying?
Good time last night. It was very, very special. Very, very special. I believe that it was more special, really, than the people who planned it intended it to be. I really do think it blew all of us away.
Yeah, it was a special moment seeing the video of the Nova Scotia tattoo and just how heartwarming that was, and their homecoming, the homecoming they never had. So I just wanted you to ask if you could share with the viewers at home what this day means to you and your family.
Well, to my family, my children, it means a whole lot to them. Even more, I suppose, than I, or in a different way than I. But it's extremely, since the planning began and I became aware of the planning and became excited about it, I have just grown in the excitement, because this is a very special time in the history of Canada. And very, very special time for those of us who are of color, those of African descent, in terms of there's a lot of momentum that is starting now, that for the people of Canada to understand who we are and what we have meant to Canada through the 2nd Battalion and so many others, but especially the 2nd Battalion at this time, that the way that they were treated before, during, and after spoke, and it speaks about what the society was then, and last night and today speaks about what the Canadian society is today. And there's hope that we are able to build even more strongly than the generation that's between us and the 2nd Battalion, that just a great deal has been done through people like the Cultural Centre of Nova Scotia and the committee. It's a national committee that put this event together. Now, we all know that not only us who are descendants of the 2nd Battalion, but even more so, people of Canada didn't even know anything about the 2nd Battalion. I knew about the 2nd Battalion because my father was there. But the kids that I grew up with, and a whole lot of the adults that buy in the grocery stores and what have you today, don't know what it was about. And the irony is that there are people in Canada today who live in fine homes, eat fine food, who are searching for their rights. And the 2nd Battalion made it possible for them to have the opportunity to even claim rights and privileges, and to protest and to and not understand and appreciate what not only the 2nd Battalion, but especially the 2nd Battalion, what those guys went through. And they did it with pride. And if there's anything, my father was a simple man, no formal education, what have you, but one thing that he insisted upon, you kids, 11 of us in the family, be proud that you're a Canadian. If he said that once in a day, he said that 14 times in a day. Be proud of being Canadian and be proud of who you are. You're a Dixon, D-I-X-O-N.
Wow.
And
thank you.
That's what my children understand,
yes.
And that's how they live. And it goes to the legacy of not only my kids, but the kids of my siblings, that they know, they understand what it means to be a Canadian and be proud of it and to contribute to the growth and the peace that the 2nd Battalion and so many others, but the 2nd Battalion made possible.
Wow, you couldn't have said it any better. Those words made me so emotional, looking at you in your eyes and seeing how much this day means to you, Mr. Dixon. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. And if I could take your hand, it is truly an honor to be standing here with you. And I hope you enjoy this and your family as well.
It's marvelous, absolutely marvelous. And thank you for giving an opportunity to share it.
Of course.
With the world.
With the world. All right, we're going to send it back to Cecil and Morgan, and thank you so much. Wow, I'm truly emotional right now.
Thank you so much, Riel. Blair Dixon himself served in the Air Force, so you can tell that that military service is strong in that family. And seeing him get so emotional, it's making me emotional.
Listen, I mentioned emotional right off the top. Just watching all the people that were assembling here to pay their respect to these men. I mean, this is truly spectacular, and I don't know that we'll ever see anything this emotional and impactful again.
Yes. I do want to touch on one thing that Blair said. He said that the number 2 Construction Battalion fought for people's rights and for the freedoms. And one thing, there's several key themes about today's event, and one of them is apologizing for past hurt, but recognizing that there's still work to be done.
Yeah, it's all about making cultural change, learning from those events from the past, and goodness knows that that's exactly what this event's going to teach everybody, that we need to come together as a country and put all that foolishness behind us and make sure that it doesn't happen again. You got to learn from your mistakes, but in order to learn from those mistakes, you've got to discuss them in order to be able to move forward.
Absolutely. And behind us, you might be able to hear there's some drumming going on. I believe you know one of the drummers yourself.
My cousin Wayne Hamilton is leading the drummers. I think one of the others is Obayo, and I can't remember the third name, but there are more than 3 drummers here today, and I just love the sound of those African drum beats too. You can't help but move.
That's right. I see you swaying now. So Riel actually has another interview for us. Take it away.
Thank you so much. And I'm standing here with Sheila White. And Sheila is a member of the NAC, which is an organization of community members across the regions who came together and were a crucial part of bringing this apology to fruition. How are you doing today, Sheila?
Oh, I'm doing so fantastic. I can't even put it into words.
I know, isn't it a wonderful day?
It is. And to think we're doing this for our ancestors and that we're bringing their story to life and giving them the just due that they deserve is just, beyond my wildest dreams.
Yeah, you said it. And can you let us know the amount of organization, the amount of coming together that the NAC had to do to bring this to fruition? What was that like as your grandfather, William Andrew White?
It was a very interesting exercise that started, 8 or 9 months ago. None of us really knew each other, and we all got thrown into the melting pot. And what I found was I was surrounded by these fantastic, intelligent, knowledgeable people, historians, curators, authors, filmmakers, descendants, military personnel, the cream of the crop, and we all blended together and we got this done. But it wasn't easy. There were many consultations, there were many meetings on Zoom where we thrashed out what needed to happen and to prepare these recommendations for the government. And now I think it's safe to say today that we're very confident that the government has heard the committee and is willing to act on what we recommended.
Oh, definitely. You should all be so proud of the commitment that you made to the number 2 Construction Battalion, to the national apology, and just look at where we're at today. Look at what has been accomplished, and it really does take a village to make things happen. And so I'm proud to have been a part of those meetings, some of them, and really get to see these cream of the crop, as you say, come together and really make this happen. So I just want to thank you for all the time that you've put in, and also your ongoing support to the number 2 Construction Battalion and to the Black Cultural Center as well.
Well, and thank you so much, and to Eastlink as well, who's really delved into this and given it the type of coverage that it always deserved and is now receiving.
Yes, thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the ceremony.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we're going to send it back to Morgan and Cecil.
Thank you, Riel. Cecil, you and I were just bopping a little bit to the drums behind us. It's amazing.
I get them shoulders moving, I'll tell you right now. I just love the sound of the African drum. I love it.
Yeah, it's one thing to get people up and moving. So, Cecil, there's a lot of things in today's event. There's going to be some dignitaries, some speeches, some music. What are you in particular looking forward to?
Well, as great as some of these speeches are going to be, and, hearing from the dignitaries, I'm looking forward to the musical performance by the spectacular Rainey Smith. She is going to sing How Great Thou Art, and I'm telling you, I'm getting welled up just thinking about it, because it's such an important song to members of the Black community, particularly those who are Baptists, of the Baptist faith, who attend the Baptist churches here in Nova Scotia. This is an enormous song in our community, and I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, Renee Smith is amazing. Her voice is spectacular, so we're lucky that we get to have her on stage. And I feel like it would be a crime for us not to mention Russell Gross in the planning of this process. This event would not be possible without his hard work. He's been working on this for a year, and it's just amazing.
Well, you know, it was way back in 2019 that then Member of Parliament Gordon Earl came across some articles, and then, you know, in consultation with Russell, who was the primary driver of this event, they were able to present a letter to the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau, to make a claim for the need for a day like this to take place and for an apology to be given to these brave men who, I mean, in the face of evil racism, they just cast that to the side and still went on to do what they wanted to do. And, you know, if that doesn't say anything about courage and determination, I don't know what does. But Russell Gross has the same courage and determination in my eyes.
And the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia has actually been championing getting recognition for the No. 2 Construction Battalion back in the 90s. They were holding events, they had monuments put up, working with Calvin Ruck to make sure that people knew about the battalion. So they've been doing the work.
Well, I dare say that Russell and the staff and the board of the Black Cultural Centre, instead of gaining notoriety for themselves, which they could be doing, and you know, some people might claim that that's their role and responsibility, I think something like this really puts them on the map.
Oh,
and I don't think that this day will ever be forgotten by the staff of the Black Cultural Centre.
No, and I'm very glad that we were able to have this event in person after the past couple years of things being virtual. An event like this deserves to be witnessed in person.
That's right. And now the drummers just stopped, which, you know, got me a little upset because I had my groove going there.
Yeah.
But, you know, the dignitaries that are going to be here and speaking today, I know that they have a great message to deliver. And the fact that an apology is going to be given, this is an historic occasion.
Yeah, and I had asked you yesterday if you thought that this was too late. And you said, what did you say to me, Cecil?
I said, it's not that it's too late, it's that the men who truly deserve to be present for this day have departed. That's why it's such an important day to their descendants, the direct descendants, because in their eyes, their fathers, their uncles, their brothers are with them in spirit. And that's what's really important.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, here's an intro to the No. 2 Construction Battalion National Apology.
At the outbreak of the First World War in 1914, many black men felt the call to serve their country. Many were rejected due to anti-black racism. Some men were told that this is a white man's war, and others that we'll send for you when we need you. Throughout this experience, black Canadians were repeatedly denied the right to serve. Through over 2 years of lobbying and letter writing by black community leaders and whites who did not support anti-black racism, a resolve was offered. In 1916, there was an urgent need for military labor units, and as a result, Canada agreed to a request from Britain to form a black labor battalion. No. 2 Construction Battalion was authorized on July 5, 1916. Recruiting began in the Maritimes on July 19th. And by August 30th, the battalion became one of the few units that was allowed to recruit across the country, the United States, and Barbados. On March 28, 1917, No. 2 Construction Battalion sailed from Halifax, Nova Scotia, on the SS Southland and arrived in Liverpool, England. The men were sent to support Canadian Forestry Corps operations in the Jura Mountains of southeast France. This included operating and maintaining the water system that supplied all the camps, maintaining the roads, and helping build a logging railroad. They were also directly involved in timber operations. At the end of the war, most of the men from No. 2 Construction Battalion sailed for Halifax and were sent back to the provinces where they were originally recruited. No. 2 Construction Battalion was disbanded on September 20th, 1920, when the Canadian Expeditionary Force was dissolved. The legacy of the battalion and the adversity they faced became a distant memory. Today, 106 years later, the Government of Canada will offer a formal apology. Long live No. 2 Construction Battalion. Your MC for today's event is Anthony Sherwood.
Hello, Nova Scotia! Bonjour, Nouvelle-Écosse! What a glorious day. Quel jour glorieux. The day has finally come. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this very special event. Bonjour toutes à tous et bienvenue à cet événement très spécial. My name is Anthony Sherwood, and I'm truly honored to be your MC for today's event. Thank you. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Mi'kmaq people. Je voudrais commencer par reconnaître que nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel et non cédé du peuple Mi'kmaq. We are privileged and thankful to be holding this event today on the land that is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. I would also like to acknowledge that the existence of people of African descent in Nova Scotia has been for over 400 years. May we honor and offer gratitude to the ancestors who came before us to this land, their perseverance and fortitude to survive. May their history never be forgotten. I want to have a special thank you for the drummers from home who performed just before the ceremony. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would ask if you would please stand, if you are able, for the procession of our VIPs. Je voudrais que tout le monde se lève, si vous êtes capable, pour nos invités distingués. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Minister of National Defense, Honorable Anita Anand. Ladies and gentlemen, the Minister of Defense, the Honorable Anita Anand. And please welcome the Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia, the Honorable Arthur LeBlanc.
God salut royal présenté au
Ladies and gentlemen, the Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia, the Honorable Arthur LeBlanc. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we are extremely honored to present the Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau. Mesdames et messieurs, le Premier ministre du Canada, the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau. Please be seated. We welcome you on this historic occasion and to this historic place where Number 2 Construction Battalion was once trained right here in Truro, Nova Scotia, and where the brave soldiers of Number 2 walked on the very ground that we stand on. Bienvenue à cet endroit historique où les soldats noirs du 12e bataillon de construction recevaient leur formation. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to introduce and welcome Honorable Captain Deborah Eisen, Elder with the Mi'kmaq Native Friendship Center. Please welcome her.
Ani bujo nani temakus and dejanakas no mayangunaway and ishnabekwe Batwana. Creator, we say miigwech for this beautiful sunshine that you have given us today to help ignite the fire in our bellies to move ahead with yet another day. Creator, as we gather today, we acknowledge and to honor the members and their families of the Number 2 Construction Battalion who never once wavered in their understanding of the need when the time came to come together to fight for Turtle Island and to protect Mother Earth at all costs. Creator, we call out to you to watch over and protect all of our nation's military members and their families. Sustain them and guide them with love and understanding. Creator, we take into your most gracious protection our service members currently deployed. May you be their comfort, their guide, as they live and walk in a foreign land. Give them reassurance that you are a shield around them, an ever-present help in time of need. Grant our service members courage so that in all things they may serve without reproach. Encourage them while they also encourage one another. Creator, as they serve around the world and here on Turtle Island, we ask that you guide their families and loved ones, provide them with peace and surround them with love as they mourn the absence of their loved ones and long for their return. May they find hope and strength in you for the trials of each new day. Creator, embrace military children who endure the difficult burden of knowing their father or mother is in harm's way for months on end. Guard these children's hearts and minds despite the loneliness and uncertainty of having a parent deployed. Creator, be with marriages in the military. Preserve the bonds of husbands and wives and of life partners, despite the stress that military life brings. Give them the strength and resilience to endure separations, frequent moves, and all the uncertainty military life brings. Creator, for some, service takes their toll permanently in physical and emotional damage. For those wounded in battle, we pray you come beside them, sustain and strengthen them amidst treatment, pain, and adjustments to life with an injury. Help them to find competent care and support, and to not be afraid to reach out for a helping hand or a listening ear. Be with their caregivers in the demanding role they have. Give caregivers renewed energy to offer support and love as they tend to the needs of the injured. Strengthen them as they both monitor and advocate for their loved ones. Creator, some have made the ultimate sacrifice, laying down their precious lives in service to our nation. Each one of them was a son or a daughter, an auntie or an uncle, perhaps a husband or wife, father, a mother, a grandma, or a grandpa. For all those who feel the pain and the toll of this war and the loss of their loved ones, comfort them. As they cast their cares on you, may they know the consolation of your love. We say miigwech willalan for the freedoms these service members fought for, which we enjoy today. For each and every veteran who has served our country through the years, we say miigwech willalan for their sacrifice. Comfort those who struggle life after service. Help us to honor and to care for those who have given so much for us. Creator, be with our nation's leaders as well, and all those who make decisions for our military. Give them wisdom and discernment in everything they do. Creator, we long for the day when the Algonquin prophecy of the seventh fire comes to fruition, which talks of a time when people will be brought together by the talents they have and not by the color of their skin. Taho miigwech, aha.
Thank you, Honorable Captain Deborah Eisen, for those wonderful words from the Mi'kmaq community. I would like now to call on Reverend Dr. Leonard Anderson of the African United Baptist Association to begin our event with a blessing.
Let us pray together. Most gracious and merciful Father, we stand on this sacred ground in humble adoration of your faithfulness. You are the God of our weary years and our silent tears. You are the defender of the weak, and you are for us. We praise you for all who have labored for liberty, justice, and peace. We recall the sacrifices of the members of the No. 2 Construction Battalion and their families. May those we honor here today never be forgotten. Thank you for their survival of our rich African Nova Scotian culture, history, and ancestry. Today, we proudly stand on the shoulders of great giants, freedom fighters, justice champions, those who bore the burden in the heat of the day and fought against the tyranny of a racist society. We stand on the shoulders of those who fought to fight for a country that did not see their dignity, humanity, equality, or bravery of service. We gather to acknowledge the failures of the past, the deep trauma and the injustices imposed upon our ancestors. And thus we pray for healing and racial reconciliation. It is our prayer that you would bless the political leaders of our country who have the courage, humility, and the grace to acknowledge systemic discrimination, to seek our forgiveness, and to embrace the opportunity to make amends. Father, where others have wronged us, grant us a gracious spirit that we might forgive even as we have been forgiven. Kindle in the hearts of all your people the true love for peace. Save us from prejudice, arrogance, hatred, and fear, and teach us how to live well together. Your word declares that someday people from every nation, tribe, and tongue will gather before your throne. Until that day, search our hearts and enable us to see every person as a beautiful creation created in your image. This is our prayer as we seek to be ministers of reconciliation in the strong name of Jesus, our Savior, the Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Anderson, for those powerful words. À ce moment, je voudrais que tout le monde se lève, si vous êtes capable, pour chanter l'hymne national. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, we would please ask you to stand, if you are able, for the singing of our national anthem by Nova Scotia's own Rinnie Smith, who will be singing O Canada, followed by the Black national anthem, Lift Every Voice.
Native land, from the places, our God, where we met thee. And left our hearts drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. Shadow beneath thy hand, the memories forever stand. True to our God, true to our native land.
Rennie Smith. Thank you, Rennie. Merci beaucoup. À ce moment, je voudrais reconnaître les descendants des soldats noirs du 2e bataillon de construction. At this time, I would like to recognize the descendants of the black soldiers of number 2 Construction Battalion who are here. I would ask if all the descendants would please rise to be recognized. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. You may be seated. Je voudrais reconnaître le maire de Sceaux en France, Madame Evelyne Comte. Où êtes-vous? Levez-vous, s'il vous plaît. Oh. Merci beaucoup pour tout le travail que tu fais pour les soldats noirs canadiens. Merci. I would also like to recognize the widow of Calvin Ruck, Senator Calvin Ruck, who is also here today. Joyce Ruck, would you please stand? Today marks a significant moment for Black Canadians as a national apology will be given by the Canadian government. A great day indeed. One that I'm sure the men of the number 2 Construction Battalion would never imagine could come. Today is the realized dream of the men of number 2. We will now view, excuse-moi, je suis trompé un peu. Yes. At this particular time, we'd like to invite the Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia, the Honorable Arthur J. LeBlanc, to please come up and say a few words.
Prime Minister Trudeau, Minister Anand, former Lieutenant Governors Francis and Grant, Lieutenant General Allen, Lieutenant General Paul, members of the Senate and of the House of Commons, members of the House of Assembly, Your Worship, members of the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia, families and descendants of the number 2 Construction Battalion, distinguished guests, ladies, gentlemen, and friends. As the Queen's representative in Nova Scotia, it is a privilege and an honor to participate in a national apology to the families and descendants of the number 2 Construction Battalion. Today, Canadians gather to pay tribute to the selfless service of more than 600 men who served King and country during the First World War while experiencing anti-Black racism and discrimination in many, many forms. À titre de représentant de la Reine en Nouvelle-Écosse, c'est un privilège pour moi de participer à l'activité nationale de présentation d'excuses aux familles et aux descendants de du 2e bataillon de construction. Aujourd'hui, les Canadiens se rassemblent pour rendre hommage au service altruiste de plus de 600 hommes durant la Première Guerre mondiale, tout en étant victimes de nombreuses formes de racisme anti-noir. Those who joined the No. 2 Construction Battalion, the only Canadian military unit that was primarily comprised of African Canadians, had been prevented from enlisting in the Canadian Expeditionary Force due to their race. While the No. 2 Construction Battalion was established in response to letters and petitions from African Canadians who fought for the right to enlist, the battalion was largely assigned with manual labor duties, including lumber operations in France. Upon their return to Canada, the battalion was disbanded without receiving appropriate recognition for service and contributions to Canada's role in the Great War. Today, Nova Scotians and Canadians stand before the families and descendants of the No. 2 Construction Battalion to acknowledge and to apologize for these acts of racism and discrimination. As a society, we take this moment to recommit to the values of diversity and inclusion in our institutions so that past harms are not repeated. Taking accountability for our history allows us to build communities where all individuals are free to live in peace and dignity. It also reminds us of the ongoing work that must be done to create lasting equality and inclusion for all. Et aujourd'hui, les gens de la Nouvelle-Écosse et du Canada reconnaissent les gestes discriminatoires et s'en excusent. En tant que société, nous renouvelons notre engagement à soutenir les valeurs de la diversité et de l'inclusion dans nos institutions pour que les torts du passé ne se répètent pas. Assumer la responsabilité de notre histoire nous permet de bâtir des communautés où toutes les personnes sont libres de vivre avec dignité et en paix. Ce fait historique nous rappelle également le travail qu'il faut continuer d'accomplir pour assurer l'égalité et l'inclusion de façon durable pour chaque personne. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Department of National Defense and the Black Cultural Center for Nova Scotia for bringing us together to publicly honor the distinguished service of the members of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. Finally, and more importantly, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to the men who served in the No. 2 Construction Battalion for their sacrifice, their perseverance, and their service to Canada. I also acknowledge the hardships endured by their families and descendants. May their legacies of service inspire all Canadians for generations to come. J'exprime ma profonde gratitude aux hommes qui ont servi le 2e bataillon de construction pour leur sacrifice, leur persévérance et leur service au Canada. Je reconnais également les épreuves qu'ont vécues leurs familles et leurs descendants. Puisse toute la valeur de leur service inspire tous les Canadiens et toutes les Canadiennes pour des générations à venir. Thank you. Merci. Walariak.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Leblanc. We would now like to invite Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard to bring a few remarks.
I have to bring this way down. Your Honor, I want to thank you for your opening remarks. I want to acknowledge all the dignitaries that are here today. I want to especially acknowledge the descendants and all of you who have come out here today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to bring these brief remarks to you. I want to invite you to imagine what life was like for African Nova Scotians in 1915. Anti-Black racism was flourishing here in Nova Scotia, across this country, as it is today. Yes, slavery had been abolished, but anti-Black racism took root. Life on the margins, harsh conditions, inadequate means to provide for their families, yet they made a way out of no way. Our ancestors were survivors, and they were loyal Canadians. Even though they had a lifetime of second-class citizenship in this country. Imagine, despite their personal family and community struggles, they were also concerned about the global war effort, the First World War. Imagine they wanted to help, but they were denied the right to fight for their country. Imagine they had to fight their country to fight for their country, to fight for our country, to have the right to join the global war effort. Hence, the No. 2 Construction Battalion was formed. Imagine the sacrifice and dedication. Imagine the fear and determination. Imagine the willingness to put your country first, even when that country didn't value or respect you. The No. 2 Construction Battalion was Canada's best-kept secret until the late Senator Dr. Calvin Ruck wrote his book, He wrote the book to tell their story. Imagine the impact on the members of the battalion that was still alive when that book was published. Imagine the impact of those who attended that reunion and the family members, the reunion that was organized by the Black Cultural Society. Imagine this impact on all Black Canadians, all of us. This place is filled today because it's had an impact on all of us. So today, folks, today we gather because this is a source of pride. Today we gather because their story, our story, is a source of inspiration. And what is happening right here, in this moment, at this time, on this day, I believe, is a source of critical hope. It's a source of critical hope for what may come next. What may come next. What the future may hold. Truly, this is a form of reparations for past harms. It truly is. And we thank you for that. We thank our government for that. We thank our community for that. This is one of the apologies owed to our people. It is the first apology to be given to our people. But I believe that our critical hope is that it will not be the last. This is acceptance and recognition of past harm. We know there's much more to be done. And African Canadians, Black Canadians from coast to coast to coast, expect more. Expect more reparations. Expect more to correct the wrongs that have been done. Expect more to correct the things that we're still living with. But today, as we honor the memory and the legacy of the No. 2 Construction Battalion, as we remember the lives lost, as we remember the sacrifices made, just for the day, I want to invite you to think, as you remember the past, think about what you will commit to do in the future. So today we gather in a spirit of critical hope. We gather in the context of collective work and responsibility, and we gather in the spirit of healing. Tomorrow starts the next journey to create pathways to better, brighter futures for all Canadians and all African Canadians. We will continue to build on this legacy. We will continue to build on the foundation that the No. 2 Construction Battalion leaves for us. And I offer thanks and appreciation to all who have helped, who have labored to make today possible. And I look forward to what comes next. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Thomas Bernard, for those powerful and passionate words spoken from someone, a sister of Nova Scotia who has lived and saw the trials and tribulations of her brothers and sisters of Nova Scotia. Thank you. I would now like to invite Member of Parliament Daryl Sampson, Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of Veteran Affairs, Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Veteran Affairs, and Associate Minister of National Defense.
Thank you, Anthony. Well, I have to say that Wanda usually says she doesn't want to follow me when I speak, but I don't really feel that comfortable following her today because that was exceptional, Wanda. Wow, wow, wow. Distinguished guests, descendant, friends, colleagues, what a beautiful day for a beautiful ceremony, for a beautiful apology. Allô, bienvenue, quoi. À mon nom et au nom du ministre des Anciens Combattants du Canada, l'honorable Lawrence McCauley, je souhaite témoigner notre reconnaissance des soldats noirs, de leurs familles, de leur communauté de la Première Guerre mondiale. The Sackville-Preston-Chesapeake riding is home to our country's oldest multi-generational Black community. It is also home to our largest Black cultural center in Canada. I would like to take the opportunity to recognize the leadership the center has shown in honoring and commemorating No. 2 Construction Battalion, headed by Russell Gross and Board Chair Brenda Francis. The ceremony in Pictou on Tuesday was outstanding. The ceremony last night at the Black Cultural Center was outstanding. And here we are in a very, very special day, and it will be outstanding, of course. To this day, it remains regrettable, part of our history, that so many Black Canadians were denied the right to serve their country. Let us take a moment to reflect on what that must have been for them to show up here on this land, wanting so badly to contribute, and at a time when all hands were desperately needed, but yet they were denied because of their color. Imagine, they had to fight for the right to fight for Canada, for our great country. May we always remember the service and sacrifice of our Black Canadians who fought so hard to serve in the First World War. It is now my pleasure to invite my colleague and former chair and founder of the Liberal Black Caucus and the Parliamentary Black Caucus, Greg Fergus, to say a few words. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Quay.
Merci beaucoup, mon cher frère Darrell, pour cette présentation. Chers invités distingués et surtout, les descendants des membres du 2e bataillon de construction. As Anthony said earlier, today we stand on the very grounds which the No. 2 Construction Battalion trained to prepare for the Great War, a war that threatened the safety of millions of people. The sad irony is that those brave members of the No. 2 Construction Battalion had to fight for their own rights before they could pursue the fight for the rights and freedoms of others, many of whom did not regard them as equals. Sadly, we are still working to combat such oppressive, systemic anti-Black racism, which continues to create barriers for Black Canadians in every sector, from access to housing and healthcare to employment opportunities. This event reminds us that the advocacy and the fighting for our rights matters. It certainly mattered back in 1916 when Black soldiers were being turned away from wanting to go to war for their country. And it still matters today. When we talk about the past, when we talk about the contributions and advocacy work of Black Canadians, that work is often left out. And make no mistake, Black history is Canadian history. The brave members of the No. 2 Construction Battalion were testament to that unwavering spirit of Black Canadians who meaningfully contributed to our nation, even if those efforts were left out of the history books. It was the tireless advocacy of Black communities across Canada for nearly 2 years at that time that resulted in the formation of the No. 2 Construction Battalion, or the Black Battalion, in Pictou, Nova Scotia on July 5, 1916. And to build on that, it took decades of advocacy efforts within the Black community to make today's announcement a reality. There are so many people to thank, but let me take a moment to thank Lieutenant Colonel Pitcher for his unflagging leadership in consulting with the descendants of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. I would also like to thank former Member of Parliament Gordon Earl, whose letter to Prime Minister Trudeau further solidified the need to make today happen. After the war, the men of the No. 2 Construction Battalion returned to Canada to face the same discrimination that they had experienced before leaving. Perhaps even more stinging, given that what they volunteered to do for their country. They were not given the hero's welcome they deserved. As a government and as a nation, we must work to ensure that the historical contributions and stories of Black Canadians are told and honored. Today's event is an important part of that, just like it was important to put the amazing Viola Desmond on a $10 bill 4 years ago. Now, the Government of Canada is working to address historical injustice. Now, why are we doing so? Why are we doing so? We're doing so, the answer is very simple. Recognizing and addressing historical injustices ensure that they never happen again. Today, we are giving the members of the No. 2 Construction Battalion the hero's welcome they never got in 1918, but so richly deserved. And today, we're building ourselves a future that Canada so richly deserves. Thank you, merci, miigwech.
Thank you, members of Parliament Sampson and Fergus. We'd like to now welcome to the stage the Honourable Alan McMaster, Deputy Premier of Nova Scotia.
I think the mic is just fine where it is. Prime Minister, Your Honor, Minister Anand, Associate Minister Sampson, Minister of African Nova Scotia Affairs Pat Dunn, Minister for Military Relations John Lohr, some of your local representatives from the provincial legislature are here with you today. Tony Ince, Tom Taggart, Larry Harrison, Ali Douali, Angela Simmons, and Elizabeth Smith McCrossan. I want to also acknowledge Senator Bernard for her wonderful remarks, Parliamentary Secretary Fergus, Mayor Mills, Lieutenant General Allen, Lieutenant General Paul, Captain Eisen, Padre Chukwu, Reverend Anderson, descendants and family of No. 2 Construction Battalion, veterans, special guests, and friends. People of African descent have been in Nova Scotia for over 400 years. Let us take a moment to honor with gratitude those ancestors of African descent who came before us to this land. I speak today, thank you. Let us acknowledge them. I speak today on behalf of Premier Tim Houston on this special day. Military service is an honored and cherished tradition in Nova Scotia. During the First and Second World Wars, the Korean conflict, Afghanistan, and numerous other engagements, Nova Scotians have always answered the call to serve. In countless communities across Nova Scotia, the service of our veterans is commemorated annually on Remembrance Day. But today we are gathered here in Truro to acknowledge that such service has not always been treated with equal respect. Today, we pay tribute to more than 600 brave Canadians of African descent who formed the No. 2 Construction Battalion during World War I, whose service was not celebrated as much as it should have been. These soldiers came from historic Nova Scotian communities from around our province. The members of the No. 2 Construction Battalion served selflessly, even when their own country resisted their service. Indeed, they were not just fighting a war against other nations. They were fighting for diversity and inclusion within their own nation. That fact is being acknowledged here today through an apology on behalf of the people of Canada. And I want to thank the Prime Minister and Minister Anand for carrying that message here today. This apology is another step in righting the historic racism This apology is another step in righting the historic racism and discrimination the battalion experienced. It is part of atoning for the past. We need to continue honoring No. 2 Construction Battalion and their descendants when sharing our country's military history. And we need to continue honoring African Nova Scotian history and listening to the voices, experiences, and perspectives of people of African descent if we are to move our society forward. Nova Scotia is committed to acknowledging and removing the systemic racism and discrimination that still affects our communities. To do that, we must all work together in the spirit of cooperation. To close, I want to thank the governments of Canada and Nova Scotia, the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia, the town of Truro, the town of Pictou, Eastlink Community Television, the African Nova Scotian communities members for their hard work in making today's ceremony possible, and to the descendants and family of No. 2 Construction Battalion. I want to extend our province's appreciation for the sacrifices and contributions of your ancestors. When I think of their courage, their resolve, and their faith in the journeys that they have faced, they and you have helped to make our province and our country a better place.
Thank you, Deputy Premier McMaster. I would like now to invite His Worship, Mayor Bill Mills of Truro, to bring remarks. Mayor.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Sitting here today, looking at all of you out here. We are on a sports field. Actually, we are on a training ground for the 2nd Battalion. The sports field here, we've seen Friday night football. There was a touchdown. We've seen baseball games. Home runs were hit. We've had track and field. And as a result, many athletic records for the province were set. The national apology today, in many ways, represents that. We have reached all those goals, and we exceed them, and we will continue to do so. Thank you on behalf of Truro Town Council and the citizens of Truro. It is my privilege to welcome all of the direct descendants of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. The Right Honourable Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, the Honourable Anita Anand, Minister of National Defence, President of the Black Cultural Centre of Nova Scotia, Brenda Francis, Senator the Honourable Wanda Thomas Bernard, the Honourable Arthur LeBlanc, Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia, as you just heard from Deputy Premier of Nova Scotia, the Honourable Alan McMaster, also Vice Chief of Defence, Staff Lieutenant General Francis Allen, and all members of Parliament, members of the Legislative Assembly, all in attendance, my town council, welcome to Truro for this important event. I am honored today to participate in this event and recognize the significance of this historic site and the history of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. In 2019, Truro Town Council embarked into what many in our local African Nova Scotian community call the historic partnership to develop an action plan that would help guide the town and the community to find solutions to long-standing issues around recognition, communication, and understanding. Since then, Council has worked collaboratively with the African Nova Scotian community to enhance our relationship and recognize their historical contributions to the community, and there have been many. We embrace this partnership with collective pride in taking a first step of many, while knowing there was and there is much more work to do. We also wish to acknowledge today's significance and the contributions of the No. 2 Construction Battalion members, many of whom were from the Truro area. Over the next 2 years, the facility that you're sitting and standing on today will be redeveloped into a modern sports facility. And as part of that redevelopment, Truro Town Council, with input from our local African Nova Scotian community, has decided to rename this facility to honor the importance of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. Did I hear somebody say it's about time? I'd also like to mention too, a permanent plaque will be installed as part of the renovation to highlight the importance and the significance of the No. 2 Construction Battalion during the First World War. This will be one way that we mark the significance of today and the contributions of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. And I will say on behalf of Council and our citizens, we are very proud to do so. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Mayor Mills, for that wonderful announcement and for welcoming us to Truro and for opening up your city to allow us to host this very important event. I would like to ask Brenda Francis, President of the Black Cultural Center of Nova Scotia, to come forward, please. Thank you, Brenda.
Change has already taken place. Amen. The Right Honourable Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the Honourable Defence Minister Anita Anand, Lieutenant Governor of Nova Scotia, the Honourable Arthur J. LeBlanc, Chief Justice of Defence Staff, Lieutenant General Francis Allen, descendants of No. 2, excuse me, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Board of Directors and staff of the Black Culture Society and Centre of Nova Scotia, it is my honor to welcome you today to the National Apology and Remembrance event for No. 2 Construction Battalion. I also respectfully acknowledge that this event is taking place in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I too like to acknowledge the existence of Black or African ancestry in Nova Scotia for over 400 years. We must honor and offer gratitude to our ancestors who came before us to this land and recognize our responsibility to preserve our history. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, several decades ago, while working as a railway porter, the late Canadian Senator Calvin Ruck came across two young men wearing a distinctive lapel pin. They explained to him that they served in No. 2 Construction Battalion, or the Black Battalion during the First World War. Mr. Ruck's interest was piqued, as he had never heard about this segregated battalion, predominantly made up of proud Black men who fought racism for their right to serve Canada and humanity at a critical juncture in world history. Senator Ruck, the Black Culture Society of Nova Scotia, and various individuals persevered with an agenda to ensure that the men of the Black Battalion received the validation and honor that they had been deprived of. Today, we are proud that all of their efforts have come to fruition in a manner that has harnessed the collective efforts of the community and the military as one organization. We therefore pay tribute to the memory of the late Senator Ruck and advocates such as the late Captain George Borden and Nova Scotia's first elected Member of Parliament, Mr. Gordon Earl, who still supports our efforts today. Prime Minister Trudeau, we take this opportunity to thank you and your team for heeding our call for an apology and proper acknowledgement of No. 2 Construction Battalion. Over a year ago, you committed to this request, and Minister Anand reinforced this commitment in March. And here we are today. We also express sincere gratitude to Lieutenant Colonel Barry Pitcher. As co-chair of the National Apology Advisory Committee, Lieutenant Colonel Pitcher's commitment to see the materialization of this event has been unwavering. and his collaboration with community stakeholders have been worthy of emulation. You have demonstrated how the military establishment that rejected or segregated Black volunteers during the First World War, today welcomes them through units like the Princess Louise Fusiliers and is eager to correct yesterday's wrong. We also acknowledge the dedicated work by Mr. Russell Gross, Executive Director of the Black Culture Center of Nova Scotia and co-chair of the National Apology Advisory Committee. Russell, your leadership, ability to execute strategic plans, and tact in helping others understand anti-Black racism must be commended. You again have made us proud. Today that dedication continues as both men, Russell and Barry, are hard at work in the Operations Center, making sure this event proceeds as planned. Thank you, gentlemen. To all the relatives and descendants who have kept faith with us throughout the journey to get to this day, we say thank you. And in closing, this partnership will continue. The partnership with the Canadian government, the Canadian military, and Black community has only begun. Racial injustice and anti-Black racism must be redressed for all Black men and women serving our Canadian Armed Forces. And together, we will and can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. As Brenda mentioned just now, this journey towards the national apology would not have been possible without the hard work and dedication of the National Apology Advisory Committee, co-chaired by Lieutenant Colonel Barry Pitcher and Executive Director Russell Gross. And on behalf of the National Advisory Committee, we would welcome my cousin, Sheila White, to the stand to say a few words.
I was told to give a moment for the flags to be re-erected and unfurled. Your Excellency, Mr. Prime Minister, Madame Ministre, dignitaries and special guests, committee colleagues, fellow descendants, ladies and gentlemen, younger ladies and gentlemen, and all those watching from across Canada and watching on Eastlink cable, wherever they may be, or live streaming this event anywhere in the world. Greetings to one and all. Bonjour, mes amis, on behalf of the National Apology Advisory Committee. As a member of the committee, may I say what an honor and a privilege it has been to be part of the apology process leading up to this momentous day. The committee members are learned historians and academics, Black cultural leaders, colonels, and devoted Canadian military personnel, past and present, subject matter experts. They are authors, filmmakers, and descendants like me. I salute my committee colleagues. What an amazing group of volunteers. I know they are as proud as I am to have been charged with advising the government on the steering of this apology event, and to know that our input will continue to be sought regarding the initiatives that flow from this starting point. I would like to thank the Government of Canada for inviting us to be part of history. On behalf of the White family, on both sides of the Canada-US border. We stand tall with all other descendants as today's honors are bestowed upon our ancestors. And although I never knew my grandpa Andrew, he died in 1936, I do know he lives strong in our family line and in Canada's fabric. What W. Andrew White stood for can guide all of us, is instructive for all Canadians, especially now. We have the motto emblazoned on a White family t-shirt, our creed. It says, scholarship, fellowship, friendship, and leadership. Scholarship, fellowship, friendship, leadership, 4 attributes I found in abundance on this committee and in the government's commitment here and across our nation to address anti-Black racism and try to right the wrongs of our past. Thank you. Merci, miigwech.
Thank you, Sheila. You've made our family proud. Thank you. At this time, we would like to enjoy a musical performance by the Stadacona Band. They'll be playing For My Country by Sergeant Nevin Patrick. Thank you, Stadacona Band. Thank you very much. That tune was written by Sergeant Nevin Patrick as a special tribute to the No. 2 Construction Battalion and was also And was also featured at this year's Nova Scotia Tattoo. Sergeant Patrick is a Black Canadian officer serving for the Canadian Armed Forces, and I believe he is here. If he would please stand and be recognized. At this time, I would like to introduce Padre Major Chinindu Chakwu, who will lead us through this time of remembrance.
Bonjour tout le monde, mesdames et messieurs. Serving the soldiers of No. 2 Construction Battalion was Honorary Captain William Andrew White, a revered Baptist minister and an outspoken advocate for the rights of Black Nova Scotians. He became Padre White, their military chaplain, and one of the first Black officers in the entire Canadian Expeditionary Force. Throughout the war, Padre White witnessed the effects of racism against his soldiers and fought to rectify their mistreatments. At the onset of winter, he noticed that many of the soldiers did not have underwears and socks and demanded they receive basic clothing. He repeatedly advocated for seriously ill soldiers, even when military doctors refused care. In one such situation, Padre White stayed by the bedside of Private John Mansfield until he died. In countless ways, Padre White embodied the spirit of resilience and hope that characterized the fighting spirit of the soldiers of No. 2 Construction Battalion. Today, we honor them. We honor their sacrifice. We honor their service. We honor their fallen. We honor their fight against injustice and racism. We honor their goodness, resilience, and faithfulness that triumphed. And now, respecting the freedom of conscience, spirituality, and religion of each person present, please spend these next moments either in prayer or in silent reflection as others pray. Almighty Creator, today we give thanks for the soldiers of No. 2 Construction Battalion. We celebrate their eagerness to fight for country, their commitment to duty, and their resolve to overcome discrimination. Today, we lament the segregation, racism, and injustice that came against them. May today's apology be a turning point to ensure that all citizens are treated with dignity and respect. As we make a commitment to amend for past wrongs, we pray for the descendants of the soldiers of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. May today mark a milestone in the process of healing and the renewed sense of pride in the achievements of their forebears. Today we give thanks for the Black community. May they be proud of who they are, proud of their achievements, proud of their place as an integral part of Canadian society. Lead us, we pray, as a nation committed to end discrimination and injustice and to foster new pathways to justice, healing, and peace. Amen.
We would now like to invite Rennie Smith back on stage. I believe we're going to have a bugler play The Last Post. This is Thank you. You may be seated. I'd like to thank the bagpiper during that time of remembrance and also the bugler, Petty Officer Second Class Greg Moffett, for that rendition of The Last Post. Earlier, I introduced the mayor of Soult, France, where several black soldiers from the No. 2 Construction Battalion are buried. In 2018, I had the honor of visiting that small village where the soldiers were buried and visited their graves. And during that time of remembrance, I reflected upon my trip to France and visiting those graves. And I thank again the mayor of Soult, Madame Evelyn Comte, for her dedication to the memory of those brave soldiers. Thank you. I'd like to invite Rennie Smith back onto the stage for a musical performance for a tune called Dream.
Everybody, Mike and Mahalia Smith.
Have you ever searched for something or someone to make your dreams come true? And have you ever hoped for a hero to come and rescue you? 'Cause if you don't dream big, don't dream at all. Dream big, yeah. Don't dream small now. 'Cause if you don't dream big, don't dream at
Thank you, Rennie. Thank you very much. Today marks a significant moment for Black Canadians as a national apology will be given by the Canadian government. I'm a seventh-generation African Nova Scotian. I stand before you as a humble servant of my ancestors who have to overcome great obstacles in order to survive. Several years ago, I produced a film about the No. 2 Construction Battalion based on my great-uncle's diary, Honor Before Glory. This is an international story, as members of the No. 2 came from all across Canada, the United States, and the Caribbean. And the film has taken me to all those places. And everywhere I go, people are amazed at this history and at this story that they never knew happened, about this amazing battalion that existed that they never knew. And I know that these members of the No. 2 Construction Battalion would have never imagined that this day would come, thanks to the government of Canada. We will now view the Black Soldier's Lament by the late Captain George Borden, who was a tireless advocate of No. 2 Construction Battalion. Today, we remember Captain Borden, who was a leader that was a critical role in this apology process prior to his passing in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, Black Soldier's Lament.
The bugle called, and forth we went to serve the crown, our backs far bent, and build whate'er that must be done, but ne'er to fire an angry gun. No heroes we, no, nay, not one. With deep lament we did our job, despite the shame, our manhood robbed. We built and fixed again to prove our worth as proud black men and hasten sure the Kaiser's end. From Scotia Port to Seaford Square, across to France, the conflict there, at Villajou and Place Perron, for God and King to right the wrong. The No. 2, 600 strong. Stripped to the waist and sweated chest, midday's reprieve, much needed rest. We dug and hauled and lifted high, from trenches deep towards the sky. Non-fighting troops, and yet we die. The peace restored, the battle won. Black sweat and toil had beat the Hun. Black blood was spilled, black bodies maimed. For medals brave, no black was named. Yet proud were we, our pride unshamed. But time will bring forth other wars, then give to us more daring chores, that we might prove our courage strong, preserve the right, repel the wrong, and proud we'll sing the battle song.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, it gives me great honor and pride to introduce to you our Prime Minister of Canada, the Right Honourable Justin Trudeau.
Good afternoon. Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you, everyone, for gathering here in Truro for such an important event, not just in Black history, but in Canadian history. I want to thank Lieutenant Governor LeBlanc, Deputy Premier McMaster, and Mayor Mills for being with us. Thank you to Minister Anand and Minister Sajjan for all the work you've done to make today happen. And thank you to our Black Caucus and Nova Scotia Caucus members. But none of us would be here today without the important work of the descendants of No. 2 Construction Battalion, the members of the National Apology Advisory Committee, many people from the African Nova Scotian community and members of the Black community across Canada, Russell Gross and the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia, and Lieutenant Colonel Barry Pitcher from the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you all. You persevered and kept the memory of Canada's first and only Black battalion alive, No. 2 Construction Battalion. We are here to accept responsibility for mistakes of the past and to pledge ourselves to working every day to build a better future. Aujourd'hui, c'est une journée historique. Et je suis heureux de voir les descendants, mais je suis aussi heureux de voir tellement de jeunes ici présents aujourd'hui, y compris mon fils Xavier. Among the most selfless things a person can do is stand up and volunteer to fight for their country, to risk your life, to defend your values and your loved ones is an act of extraordinary bravery, of honor, of sacrifice, of loyalty. When the First World War broke out in Europe and Canada joined the fight, men from across the country flocked to enlist. Among those brave volunteers were hundreds of young Black men, eager to serve, who loved Canada and were ready to take up arms to defend king and country. They were willing and able patriots who wanted to serve. Des centaines de jeunes hommes venant des communautés noires voulaient servir leur pays et protéger la liberté qui nous est chère. Ils voulaient lutter avec honneur contre la tyrannie et l'oppression. Mais presque tous les volontaires venant des communautés noires se sont vus refuser l'honneur de servir leur pays. In repeated acts of discrimination and racism, almost every single Black volunteer was turned away and denied the honor of serving their country. In one instance, a group of 50 Black volunteers journeyed from Sydney to New Glasgow by train and waited all day at the recruiting office only to be told that this was a white man's war. Those recruiters did not see men willing to fight for our collective freedom. They only saw the color of their skin. Back then, there were unwritten laws of segregation, but some were more explicit. In 1910, when the Naval Service of Canada was founded, its recruitment practices excluded non-white members. And while there was no official policy for the Canadian Expeditionary Forces, it was left up to commanding officers who repeatedly turned black volunteers away. These shameful, discriminatory practices did not go unnoticed by the public. Letters came from across the country demanding to know why black men could not enlist. In 1915, George Morton from Hamilton, wrote the Minister of Militia and Defense to speak out on behalf of his fellow black citizens. I quote, "They think they should be permitted, in common with other peoples, to perform their part and do their share in this great conflict." He stated that black men wanted to work out their own destiny and were anxious to serve in this critical crisis in the country's history. What more devotion to country could we have asked for? And yet, senior military leadership at the time continued to turn a deaf ear. How quickly the military leadership of the day had forgotten the history of black soldiers. For over a century, black soldiers had sacrificed so much to serve this place they called home. Durant la guerre de 1812, les soldats noirs ont défendu le Haut-Canada. En 1859, William Edward Hall, le fils d'anciens esclaves, a été l'un des premiers Canadiens à recevoir la Croix de Victoria pour sa bravoure. In 1861, the Victoria Rifle Pioneers Corps became the first authorized military force in Western Canada and was comprised entirely of black men who had come to British Columbia to escape racial persecution down south. By the time of the First World War, Canada already had a long history of loyal black military service. But in 1916, a major general took it upon himself to write a memo that disparaged the loyalty and combat capabilities of black men. This is what systemic racism and anti-black hate does. It suppresses the truth. It tries to rewrite history under false narratives. It buries the bravery, humanity, and common cause we share. But human nature shows us again and again that people will always find a way to stand up and demand their dignity. And the black men who wanted to serve never gave up. Le racisme systémique et la haine envers les communautés noires contribuent à supprimer la vérité. Mais la nature humaine nous a montré plusieurs fois que les gens trouveront toujours le moyen de se lever et de réclamer leur dignité. You see, 2 years after the war began, black men were finally permitted to form their own battalion, Number 2 Construction Battalion, Canada's first and only black battalion. While many members were from around here in Nova Scotia, black men and boys traveled from across the country to enlist. 2 sons of the famous cowboy John Ware, Arthur and William, came all the way from the family's Calgary homestead. Environ 600 patriotes de tout le pays sont venus ici, à Truro, pour recevoir un entraînement. Ils ont fièrement revêtu l'uniforme du corps expéditionnaire canadien après 2 ans de refus. Mais ils n'ont jamais eu les mêmes possibilités ni le même soutien que leurs homologues blancs. When these black men had answered the call of duty, they had dreamt of fighting on the front lines. But instead, they were deployed to Europe as a labor unit. They had to sail on a separate ship and were sent to the Jura Mountains of southeastern France, where they joined the Canadian Forestry Corps. They did grueling work, and their contributions were invaluable to the war effort. The lumber they cut lined the trenches on the front lines, became railway ties, and was even used in aircraft. Thanks to their faithful and disciplined work, the mills produced double the lumber of other comparable units. But still, they had to live in segregated camps and without proper medical care, rations, or equipment. 23 members of the battalion died in Europe, their lives lost while serving their country. And when the war was over and the battalion came home, the living were never given the hero's welcome they deserved. À leur retour, les membres du 2e bataillon de construction n'ont jamais reçu l'accueil en héros qu'ils méritaient. In the poem we just heard, Black Soldier's Lament by Captain George Borden, the opening lines are haunting. The bugle called, and forth we went, to serve the crown, our backs far bent, and build whate'er that must be done, but ne'er to fire an angry gun. No heroes we, nay, not one. That last line. How could they not be seen as heroes? As a country, we failed to recognize their contributions for what they were. Their backbreaking work, their sacrifice, their very willingness to put their country before their self. The Great War was won at the hands of every soul that served. We owe these men, these brave black men, so much. Je suis ici aujourd'hui afin d'offrir les excuses du gouvernement du Canada pour la façon horrible dont ces patriotes ont été traités. I am here today to offer the Government of Canada's official apology for the appalling way these patriots were treated. For the overt racism of turning black volunteers away when they offered to sacrifice their lives for all, we are sorry. For not letting black service members fight alongside their white compatriots, for denying members of No. 2 Construction Battalion the care and support they deserved, we are sorry. For failing to honor and commemorate the contributions of the members of No. 2 Construction Battalion and their descendants, for the blatant anti-black hate and systemic racism that denied these men dignity in life and in death, we are sorry. On ne peut pas changer le passé, mais on doit tous saisir les occasions d'apprendre de nos erreurs. Malheureusement, on sait qu'un trop grand nombre de membres des Forces armées canadiennes sont encore confrontés au racisme systémique et à la discrimination, y compris le racisme envers les communautés noires. We are committed to meaningful change where the dignity of all service members in the Canadian Armed Forces is upheld. Where everyone is welcome, where everyone can rise through the ranks, where everyone has opportunities to distinguish themselves. We cannot and we will not ever let what happened to No. 2 Construction Battalion happen again in ways large or small. And we cannot let the service of any member of our forces ever be overlooked or forgotten. Today, very little would be known of the battalion's legacy if it weren't for the efforts of their steadfast descendants, relentless historians, and Black leaders. I want to, again, thank Russell Gross and all of those at the Black Cultural Centre for Nova Scotia for their work to research and preserve the memory of No. 2 Construction Battalion. I also want to particularly thank former Member of Parliament for Halifax West, Gordon Earl, for his dedication to commemorating the battalion. And there are two other names that need mention, names who are no longer with us. First, Senator Calvin Ruck, who devoted himself to documenting Canada's Black military history and sharing the stories of the members of No. 2, including by publishing a book on the men, and Captain George Borden, who was a descendant of serving members and served in the military himself. Captain Borden was a ceaseless advocate of the battalion who also wrote that beautiful poem we heard earlier. I also want to acknowledge among all the various descendants and family members, Audrey Paris, who is the oldest direct descendant. Her father, Sheldon Paris, served in No. 2. Audrey can't be here with us today, but I know is watching from Toronto. Thank you. Over the past few decades, efforts have been made to recognize the battalion, including exhibitions, publications, Parks Canada events, and a stamp. Well, today, we're announcing that next year, during Black History Month, the Royal Canadian Mint will release a pure silver collector coin honoring No. 2 Construction Battalion, which will allow Canadians, no matter where they live, to be part of remembering this extraordinary legacy. L'année prochaine, pendant le mois de l'histoire des Noirs, la monnaie royale canadienne va émettre une pièce de collection en argent pur, en l'honneur du 2e bataillon de construction, pour permettre aux Canadiens de tout le pays de participer à la commémoration de son héritage. Aujourd'hui, j'espère que tous les Canadiens vont faire des recherches sur nos histoires non écrites et non racontées. Il y a des histoires comme celle du 2e bataillon qui nous montrent que la force et la résilience de notre humanité commune ne se résument pas à la couleur de notre peau. All members of the Canadian Armed Forces fight under the same flag. Our flag may have changed since the First World War, but what we stand for never has. Freedom, peace, justice, fairness, and hope. This is the promise of Canada. And while we still have work to do, this should always be what we fight for at home and around the world. To the memory of these black soldiers, we would like to say, today we see you and we honor you. And to their descendants, we hope you see yourselves as you are, heirs to the memory of true Canadian heroes.
There's paperwork.
Wow. Let's just take in what just happened here on this historic moment and that amazing speech by our Prime Minister. The words "thank you" cannot express our gratitude to you, Mr. Prime Minister. And the magnitude of gratitude by the men of No. 2 Construction Battalion. Nous sommes très honorés de votre présence ici. Merci pour votre mot personnel, votre dédication aux mémoires des soldats noirs du 2e bataillon de construction. Merci infiniment, Mr. Prime Minister. It is my great honor to introduce to you now the Minister of National Defense, the Honorable Anita Anand.
Prime Minister, Lieutenant Governor, families of the No. 2 Construction Battalion, members of the Canadian Armed Forces, Minister Fraser, fellow members of Parliament and MLAs, distinguished guests. Good afternoon, bonjour. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your time with us. Last night, I had the privilege of spending time with descendants of the No. 2 Construction Battalion, many of whom are here today with us. What a night it was. It was a night of solemn acknowledgement, and it was also a night of gratitude. And I have learned so much from you about the brave service of your family members and about the unacceptable racism that your parents, your grandparents, your uncles, and loved ones endured. J'ai également eu le plaisir de passer du temps avec les membres du Comité consultatif national, le Centre culturel noir pour la Nouvelle-Écosse et les membres de nos forces armées canadiennes. And I am so grateful to join you all here today. I am a proud daughter of Nova Scotia. I was born and grew up just a few hours from here in Kentville, in the beautiful Annapolis Valley. And it's great to be back home. I love history. It was my minor in university, and I devoured history courses in grade school at Kings County Academy in Kentville as well. And I remember very clearly being in class and learning about the brave military history of our province and our country. And yet throughout my life, these history lessons never once included the story of the dedicated members of the No. 2 Construction Battalion. In fact, I knew nothing about the battalion until I became Minister of National Defense in November. And what I learned today, in fact, just before coming on the stage, is that two members, indeed brothers, of No. 2 were from Kentville. Their names were Frederick and James Lindsay, and Lindsay Road still exists in Kentville at the site of Camp Aldershot, which is just kilometers from where I lived and grew up. And so it is this glaring omission which really speaks to why we're here today. And this apology is a century in the making. Au début de la Première Guerre mondiale, les Canadiens noirs ont essayé de lever la main pour servir. En juillet 1916, le gouvernement du Canada a finalement accepté de créer un bataillon de soldats noirs, mais ces hommes ont été confrontés aux préjugés et au racisme anti-noir. And as we've heard today, c'est incroyable, it's incredible, it's unbelievable that they pleaded to serve, but they were denied the ability to do so. And they became, of course, able to form their battalion, but they were responsible for construction of roads and railways alone, which were, as the Prime Minister so eloquently said, so very important to the war effort itself. And one battalion member recalled, "The Army let us join, but they wouldn't let us fight. They gave us shovels, not rifles." And when they came home, they were denied the recognition that they so deserved for their service. And so today, it is my honor to be here with you to express how deeply sorry we are to all the battalion's descendants gathered here today, to descendants watching from home, and to members of the battalion who are no longer with us, we are sorry. I am sorry. Nous sommes désolés. Je suis désolée aussi. The road to today has been a long and meaningful one, and I am so thankful for the hard work of Russell and Barry and No. 2 Battalion descendants and the entire Black Cultural Center for Nova Scotia, and of course the National Advisory Committee. Meeting with you all over the last number of months and seeing your deep commitment to making Canada and our military more inclusive and to honoring the legacy of No. 2 inspires me every single day. Your work has been tireless, your efforts relentless, your commitment far-reaching. And let me share just one example. Recently, I was in Peterborough, Ontario, visiting the Black Honey Bakery and Cafe. And on this occasion, and after the visit, the owner let me know that she was actually the daughter of one of the direct descendants of the battalion. And when she learned about these efforts to bring forward the apology, she explained just how important it is to ensure that direct descendants meaningfully participate and attend in person, including her relatives who are here with us today. And I want to thank Russell and Barry again because you and your team made this happen. You wanted to make sure that anyone and everyone who was affiliated and connected with the No. 2 would be able to be with us today on this glorious day in Truro, Nova Scotia. What more could we ask for? Thank you so much for being here. And I just want to say that our conversation last night was so meaningful to me. It was the smiles, the hugs, the stories we exchange that are etched in my memory and will live forever in my heart. And the goosebumps have not left me, but they motivate me to continue with our important collaboration because we have learned, we have heard, we know about the historical significance of the No. 2 Battalion. And now we are apologizing for the egregious injustices that they faced. Passons maintenant à l'avenir. Now it's time to ask, what is our path forward to honoring this legacy and ensuring that such discrimination never recurs, particularly for the newest, youngest, and future members of our Canadian Armed Forces? When you, the members of the Advisory Committee, recently presented your report to me, I was so impressed by your thoughtful and thorough recommendations, how much care you took to make today meaningful and to ensure that our collective work does not stop after July 9th. Your work has led to our gathering here today, and specifically to hear from our Prime Minister, who has delivered a heartfelt and meaningful apology. Indeed, after many discussions with Barry and Russell in the committee, I heard firsthand, Prime Minister, how important it is that you be here today. And I want to thank you for your presence here today, which means so much to all of us. Ces recommandations me donnent la responsabilité de veiller à ce que l'histoire du bataillon guide nos efforts pour améliorer la culture des forces armées canadiennes. Et le rapport recommande que nous nous unissions en tant que pays pour honorer le 2e bataillon de construction, car il s'agit d'une histoire d'importance nationale. Et la présence de chacun d'entre vous montre votre engagement et nous rejoindre dans cet effort. This effort will continue well after today as our Canadian Armed Forces take further steps to honor and remember this battalion. For example, the battalion has now been awarded the France and Flanders 1917-1918 Battle Honor, which recognizes this battle honor recognizes and pays tribute to their brave service in the Great War. And the battle honor will proudly be displayed at the 4 Engineer Support Regiment in Gagetown, New Brunswick. The 4 Engineer Support Regiment has also been tasked with preserving the memory of the No. 2 Construction Battalion so that future generations can honor and remember these men in the Canadian Armed Forces and in this incredible country. Now, the advisory committee offered other critical recommendations that serve as guideposts for the way forward. And I welcome and I agree with these recommendations, and I have instructed my department to incorporate them into our ongoing efforts right away. I commit today to continuing our ongoing initiatives that are consistent with many of the panel's recommendations and to working with you to implement your recommendations in the weeks and the months to come. Aujourd'hui, je m'engage à poursuivre nos initiatives déjà en cours qui s'alignent sur bon nombre des recommandations du panel et j'ai demandé au ministère de la Défense nationale de continuer à travailler sur ces recommandations dès maintenant. As Canada's Minister of National Defence, I am committed to learning from the mistakes of our past so that we never again repeat them. I am committed to taking concrete action to change the culture of the Canadian Armed Forces so that it is more inclusive, it is more diverse, and it is indeed representative of Canada's diverse population. And I am committed to eliminating systemic racism so that the discrimination faced by the No. 2 Construction Battalion and those who followed never happens again. And I am committed to celebrating and honoring the immense contributions of the No. 2 and all Black Canadians who have served our country in uniform, and indeed the many Black Canadians who continue to do so today. To conclude, je suis convaincue que les excuses d'aujourd'hui représentent un pas en avant significatif pour honorer la mémoire du 12e bataillon de construction. May today help recognize every Black Canadian who bravely served this country in times of war and in the pursuit of peace. And may today contribute to building a Canada that lives up to the ideals that the members of No. 2 fought so bravely to protect. My dear friends, yes, we have more road to travel, but make no mistake, we will keep walking that road together until we get this right. Thank you. Merci. Miigwech.
Thank you, Minister Anand. Thank you for your leadership and your dedication to change. Last night, I had the pleasure to attend the reception hosted by our Minister of National Defense, and we were so impressed and touched by her passionate speech. And today we witnessed her kindness of heart and sincerity of character. Thank you, Minister. At this time, I'd like to present and introduce Mr. Douglas Ruck, the son of Senator Calvin Ruck, who will speak on behalf of the descendants of the No. 2 Construction Battalion, who has just been appointed honorary colonel of the Canadian Armed Forces. Today is the first day that Douglas Ruck is wearing his uniform. And I must say, Mr. Ruck, you're looking very handsome and official in that uniform. Mr. Douglas Ruck.
Thank you, Tony. Good afternoon, everyone. Your Excellency, Prime Minister Trudeau, Minister Anand, dignitaries, fellow descendants, Canadians, supporters of the battalion, both here in the stadium and online. Welcome to this very historic day. Every now and then, one is tasked with an assignment that is so significant in history that it causes one to pause and to reflect, introspection. For me, this is one of those days, one of those occasions. Where do you begin with respect to an apology that has taken 106 years in the making? Where do you open? In many respects, simply by saying, thank you. Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, Minister Anand, for your words that were heartfelt, that were meaningful, and that to the descendants, they have waited so long to hear. 3 simple words: we are sorry. It resonated. It's meaningful. It's important. Thank you for saying so. Today we are here to honor and to remember the men of No. 2 Construction Battalion. Today we are here for them because when war broke out in 1914, when Canada became part of that war effort, the men of the battalion were there for us. They were not wanted. They were despised for the audacity of wanting to wear a Canadian uniform. They were denigrated. They were dismissed. As the Prime Minister had mentioned, they were told this is a white man's war. You are not needed, you are not wanted. But they persisted. They were there for us. They were there for all Canadians. And today, all Canadians must thank those men, must stand up and say to them, we are sorry and thank you for what you did on our behalf. Today is that day. Today is that day. On behalf of the descendants, I appreciate the words that were stated by the Prime Minister, the words of Minister Anand. But we all know the reality is that the words cannot right the wrong. The wrongs will remain. Those wrongs have scarred us in many respects. Those wrongs are part of our history, part of our being. The story is important, but we must not forget the past. We must never forget what took place. And I appreciate the Prime Minister's words in setting out the history of the battalion. If we do not know the history, and in fact, if the history is lost to our children and our children's children, then that history loses its relevance. So, Prime Minister, thank you for recounting what those men went through, what they dealt with, and what they persevered in order to become the men in the Construction Battalion. How very important that was and is. The apology was significant. Those words were significant. But there's also the reality. And the reality right now is that we are in a period of time when things are not in the best possible state. We are watching in real time as democracy is under assault. We are watching in real time as those rights, those freedoms, those liberties that we thought were in fact insurmountable and permanent have either been diminished or in some cases taken off the books. We are watching as right-wing groups who are emboldened walk upon our streets with flags and slogans reminiscent of what was said to the men of the construction battalion. That is the time we are in. That is our reality. And therefore, the words that were stated today are not limited, and I appreciate that, are not limited to July the 9th here in Truro, Nova Scotia. What was most significant is that we are to move forward. Today is not the culmination. Today is the beginning. Today we begin to see the change. I share the hope of Senator Wanda Bernard. And therefore I say once again, thank you for the apology. And while Senator Bernard has said this is the first apology as African Canadians that we have ever received, it's significant. But there have been promises in the past. And once again, while I appreciate what was said, I also know that we have walked this path before. Far too often, the only thing that remains are the words. Let this be the time that, in fact, on your behalf, I accept what's been said by the Prime Minister. I accept what's been said by the Minister of National Defense. Their word is their bond. But let's ensure that as we move forward, we begin to see the change, that the structural racism in Nova Scotia, yes, in Nova Scotia, we know far too well the devastating aspects of institutional and structural racism. Say the name Africville, and you know the pain. You know what's been left. You know what needs to be done, what remains to be done. The number 2 Construction Battalion must not just become a name. It must become significant. It must become a point of difference. We must know that on this day, on July the 9th in Truro, Nova Scotia, a commitment was made on behalf of this government to make a difference. Prime Minister, on behalf of the descendants, we are privileged to have heard your words today. And we are privileged to have been here for this time and to hear what was said by yourself and the minister. And I say to you, sir, and to Minister Menard, with all due respect, you were equally privileged to have been able to give an apology to the descendants of the number 2 Construction Battalion. Equally privileged to do so. As my dear friend Anthony Sherwood stated, today I stand before you wearing the uniform of the Princess Louise Fusiliers. Proudly, proudly. But when I was first asked, would I take this on? Would I become an honorary colonel? My internal response was, why would I do that? Why? Anyone who knows me may know that I am not, and never have been, one who would naturally go or gravitate towards the military. But upon reflection, and when I thought of those men, the number 2 Construction Battalion, they fought for the right to wear this uniform. How could I say no? So today, and today is the first day I have donned this uniform, and it's so fitting. So today, I say to you, Prime Minister, I say to you, Minister Anand, I wear this uniform out of respect and the memory and the legacy of the men of the number 2 Construction Battalion. It's for them that I wear this uniform. It's for them that we're here today. Thank you. Thank you. And I must also add, this has been a day of great emotion. I also wear this uniform in memory of my father, the late Senator Calvin Ruck. He deserved to have this. He deserved to have this uniform. I wear it on his behalf. He gave every bit of effort to make a difference. He wrote about the battalion not to own it, but to share it. He wrote about the battalion so others could carry that news forward, so the word would be spread. And it's happened. It's happened. Prime Minister, the fact that you're here today, Minister, now the fact that you're here today, the dignitaries that are here today, is directly attributable to the dedication of those individuals who you mentioned. Gordon Earl, the late George Borden, and my father, the late Senator Calvin Ruck, who gave so much and asked nothing in return. So as we move forward, we'll be watching, and as the minister has stated, and correctly so, as we move forward, this is not a thing of us as a people being told, this is what you need. This is what we're going to do for you. The question is, and as we have learned during the consultation process, consult with us, talk to us, speak to us, listen to us. We have words to say that you need to hear. We can help to make the difference. And together, we can make a difference. The number 2 Construction Battalion will become part of Canadian history, not as specific before, not black history, Canadian history for one and all. On this day, we see the birth, the growth, and the apology for the number 2 Construction Battalion. May that memory live forever. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
My dear brother Douglas Ruck, thank you for those powerful words. Thank you, Honorary Colonel Douglas Ruck. At this time, I'd like to invite to the stage the Vice Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General Francis Allen, to come forward.
Prime Minister, Minister Anand, Your Honor, descendants of the number 2 Construction Battalion, veterans that I see in front of me here today, serving members of the community, friends and family, I will reflect the words of our most latest honorary colonel and say, it is an honor to be here today on this day. I am truly humbled to represent the Canadian Armed Forces on this most significant day for the members of the number 2 Construction Battalion and their descendants. Today, we bore witness to the righting of a historical wrong, a wrong that galvanized many in their steps for many years to create the righting of this wrong. To you, their descendants and advocates, many of whom are here with us today, they are central to this story, and they have worked without fail to bring number 2's legacy to life. And so to all of you, I say thank you. Il y a longtemps que ces excuses auraient dû être présentées. Et l'attente a été encore plus longue pour vos ancêtres qui ont servi le Canada pendant la Grande Guerre, il y a plus de 100 ans. C'est nécessaire pour réparer les erreurs du passé. And at the same time, we acknowledge that there are some things that this apology cannot do. It cannot take away the historical injustice that racism has put on Black Canadians when they tried to enlist. And it can't ease the pain and the frustration that they carried for a lifetime. The result of a nation and a military that failed to acknowledge their vital contribution to the war effort. But what it can do is address once and for all the near complete absence of number 2's place in Canadian military history, and the all too easy denial and rejection of Black Canadians who wanted to serve. The story of number 2 is extraordinary in so many ways, not the least because its members stood up for a country at a time when Canada didn't offer them fair and equal treatment in return. As we commit ourselves to ensuring equity and inclusion for all in the Canadian Armed Forces, we will always remember their courage and their sacrifice. Their actions humble and inspire us to be worthy of their commitment to our country. And they call upon us to fulfill our own commitments to eliminate systemic racism and all forms of harmful behavior in our ranks, once and for all. And their tenacity will continue to serve as an example for others in overcoming odds in the face of injustice for generations to come. And so today, we not only honor number 2's significant contributions to the military history of the Canadian Armed Forces and to the history of Canada, but importantly, we are here to perpetuate that recognition as part of our military future. One of the most significant ways that actions of a military unit can be immortalized is through battle honors, as Minister Anand spoke of previously. And these battle honors are awarded for service in a battle, a campaign, or a theater against an armed enemy. Last month, on the 1st of June, after more than a century, Number 2 Construction Battalion of the Canadian Expeditionary Force was awarded the France and Flanders 1917 to 1918 Battle Honor for all who served in France and Belgium. Today, it is my honor to formally present this Battle Honor plaque to the Number 2 Construction Battalion as they become the 64th Canadian military unit to receive the France and Flanders Battle Honor for their service in theater. Too long in coming. As you have heard today, Number 2 Construction Battalion is no longer an established unit, having been officially disbanded in September of 1920. But when a disbanded unit receives a battle honor, tradition calls for a serving unit to preserve and perpetuate the memory of their sacrifice and their deeds for future generations. So today it is going to be my honor to present the 4th Engineering Support Regiment of the Canadian Military Engineers, who are based in CFB Gagetown in New Brunswick, with this plaque. And I know that Atlantic Canada's only full-time engineering regiment will do Number 2 proud in displaying that honor, perpetuating their story, and highlighting the vital role that shall always link them together. So as I present this Battle Honor plaque to the CO of the 4th Engineering Support Regiment, I would like you all to please join me in offering all members of Number 2 Construction Battalion, Canadian Expeditionary Force, and their descendants a spirited and well-deserved round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. On behalf of 4 Engineer Support Regiment, it is truly an honor to be playing a role in this historic moment and to be perpetuating the history of No. 2 Construction Battalion, Canadian Expeditionary Force. As part of perpetuation, 4 Engineer Support Regiment will appoint a junior officer to act as liaison between the unit and the descendants in order to maintain communications. And the unit will continue our strong link to the community by participating in the annual No. 2 Construction Battalion Parade in Pictou each year, something the unit had participated in for a number of years pre-COVID. With respect to the battle honor, 4 Engineer Support Regiment will name the carpentry shop in the soon-to-be-open new unit building in Gagetown after the No. 2 Construction Battalion. And this plaque will be placed and displayed proudly in a place of honor outside the room. An identical plaque will be given to the descendants of the No. 2 Construction Battalion for display, which I have the pleasure to now hand to Mr. now Honorary Colonel Doug Ruck. My pleasure, sir. She was designed by one of the soldiers before you, sir, and it was crafted by the soldiers before you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Congratulations to the newest officer.
What had been disbanded is now once again a part of our official history. Thank you.
You should know that Douglas Ruck was not feeling too well, and despite that, he still took all efforts to be here today, exemplifying the true fiber of a soldier. As the winds of change blow across the fields of Truro, we would like to welcome again Rinnie Smith for her rendition of How Great Thou Art. Rinnie. Thank you, gentlemen of the Armed Forces. Rinnie Smith.
shall come with shout of acclamation, and he takes me home. Then what joy shall be my heart? Then I shall bow in humble adoration, and then proclaim, my God, how great thou art, and sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. Oh, how great thou art, how great thou art, and sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art, and sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. Oh, how great thou art, how great thou art. Oh, then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. Whoa, how great thou art. Oh, how great thou art. Oh, and sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. Yeah, 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 yeah. How great thou art, how great thou art, how great thou
How great thou art, Greenie Smith. Thank you. We're almost done. We're almost done. Before we conclude today's festivities, we're going to hear a selection from the Stadakota Band. Gentlemen. No, we're not. They're on strike. Ladies and gentlemen, then that concludes today's festivities. We want to thank you all for witnessing 2 historical events on the grounds of the Truro Amateur Athletic Grounds. The first was where the No. 2 Construction Battalion was trained on this very grounds. And today you witnessed the second historical event, the first apology to the Black community of Canada. Thank you all for being here today. Please stand. We ask you to please stand for the departure of our distinguished guests.
Cecil, the Prime Minister is making his way out after that amazing event, the national apology.
Yeah, fantastic. This has just been an unbelievable day, and the Prime Minister did an excellent job in delivering that apology. I thought it was extremely heartfelt and sincere.
I mean, I seen you tearing up over there.
I
seen you.
I couldn't help it. It was just so emotional. You know, the fact that here we have a Prime Minister who has the temerity to actually apologize for the wrongs of the past. I mean, that doesn't happen every day, and it certainly doesn't happen south of the border.
Yes, it also doesn't tend to happen in Nova Scotia.
Well, that's a whole nother issue. The fact that he made the trip here to Nova Scotia to deliver the apology on the very ground that the No. 2 Construction Battalion trained on is just even more motivational.
Yes. So, Cecil, what was your favorite, what was the highlight of the event for you?
To me, other than the actual apology delivered by the Prime Minister and his words, it was the stirring words of Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard, who I will never forget the fact that she said these men had to fight their country to fight for their country. And she's 100% correct, and I just can't believe that was the case years ago. You know, we all know about anti-black racism. We all know that it existed then, still exists today. But the fact that they had to go to battle with their own country to represent their country is just unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, Wanda Thomas Bernard, she was fiery, and I loved it. I loved it. Calvin Ruck also, or Douglas Ruck also.
Yes, and this is the first time that he wore his military outfit.
That's right. He dedicated it to his father.
Yes.
And he was also calling for change.
Well, the thing is, he's also putting the politicians on notice that we appreciate what you're doing here today, but let's not forget all about this starting tomorrow.
Yes.
There's still more work to be done, and we're going to hold you to account for that, and he's right.
Absolutely. I want to go back to talking about the Black Cultural Center. If this event has made you interested in finding out more info about the No. 2 Construction Battalion, and you're in Nova Scotia, the Black Cultural Center for Nova Scotia is the spot that you want to go to.
And on that note, I've got to say, I got to congratulate my main man, Russell Gross, who, you know, I mean, you heard the Prime Minister even thank him for his efforts here. this event would not have taken place without Russell. And let's not kid ourselves in thinking that it was just a little tiny job.
No,
he spent a lot of time on this, and big congratulations.
Yeah, he was here before the event talking to us, making sure we were okay. And he looked nervous, and then he came to us a couple minutes ago, and it kind of looked like a weight was off of his shoulders. He looked a little relieved.
I think he'll get some sleep tonight.
I think he will get some sleep today. And also, there is a website that has been developed between the Black Cultural Center and the 5th Division, where you can find out some more information on the number 2 Construction Battalion, and they're going to be updating it. It's going to be evolving as they find out new information.
And I would say the easiest thing to do for people who might not have that website right now is just to Google the Black Cultural Center of Nova Scotia, and it comes right up like that, and it'll take you right into the website.
You can also watch Anthony's documentary, Honor Before Glory. That's a good resource, which we also had on Black Films That Teach.
And, you know, that's another, we didn't even talk about that very much, the fact that Anthony Sherwood, the MC and noted actor, is somehow tied into this community. He's a, great grandnephew of Reverend White?
I believe so. He's a cousin of Portia White. So, yeah.
Wow.
I know, he's got a connection. Everyone's connected here in Nova Scotia. And it was so great to see the descendants. They were very enthused in the crowd. And it was great to see. They were standing up, cheering, and this event was for them.
The other thing I got to say before we close out is the black veterans that were marching in the same military uniform as the number 2 Construction Battalion. Man, if that doesn't get you going, if the heart doesn't start doing palpitations when you see that, nothing will get you going.
It really did. It transported us back in time for a moment, seeing them march by.
Absolutely. I get friends walking around here.
You do. You're popular over here. You're signing autographs, kissing babies. You're just almost as popular as Mr. Trudeau.
I wouldn't go quite that far. But, you know, I mean, like I said, the fact that the Prime Minister of Canada came all the way here to make this apology on the grounds that those men trained on, I think is a significant fact that we can't overlook.
No.
He just won himself a lot of voters.
He did. And it was great to see him here, and it was humbling. It was a little humbling to see the Prime Minister, because you see him on TV and then you see him in this community apologizing to the number 2 Construction Battalion. It really did make the moment feel real.
And talking about anti-black racism and the work that we still have to do here in this country, you know, that shows that he's a politician, but he's also a human being, and he's got that personal interest in this topic. I mean, he has children too, and you know that they want to grow up healthily and, you know, have no problems with race, you know, when they go to school or when they eventually land a job and become a valuable contributing member of our society.
Well, we're going to throw it over to Riel Simone. She has a special guest with her now.
Hi there. Thank you so much. What an amazing ceremony and apology that we got today. I'm standing here with Minister of Defense Anita Anand. And first of all, like everyone has been saying, welcome home first.
Thank you. It's great to be home. A beautiful Nova Scotia summer day. Couldn't be happier to be here.
And thank you for those strong words, those passionate words. And we had an opportunity to meet last night, and same thing. And I'm just wondering, can you tell us how are you all feeling after all of this that's taken place today?
I was holding back tears. I couldn't tell you how emotional this day is. We've been working so hard to make sure that this apology would come together, and it finally did. And we're just so grateful to all the descendants and the National Advisory Committee and the Black Cultural Center for Nova Scotia and everyone for making this happen. And the Prime Minister's presence here today made a big difference to the descendants, and so I'm very grateful to him as well for being here.
And we're grateful for you for being here as well, and thank you for accepting and bringing the apology to us today. And it's quite an honor to speak to you and to have you.
Well, it's actually an honor to be here, and I'll just say that the apology has occurred, but this isn't the end. This is the beginning. We are going to continue to make sure that we are honoring the legacy of the number 2 Black Construction Battalion. We are going to make sure that we continue to build the Canadian Armed Forces where discrimination has no place, where everyone who puts on a uniform can do so in a safe and respected and protected manner. That's what we owe the men and women who serve, but that's what we owe our country. So that's my priority, and we're going to keep building. So it was great to be able to be here today to express that, to say the apology, but then to say we need to keep working collectively together, hand in hand, walking the road to make sure that systemic discrimination is dismantled.
100%, and I think I speak for all of us when we say thank you to you and the Prime Minister for your dedication to bringing the apology to us all today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this little discussion, but hope we have another chance to chat soon because this is just so important for the Canadian Armed Forces.
It is. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have a great
Thanks
day.
so much. Take care.
Back to you guys. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Riel. It's been great working with you the past couple of days. Yeah, you have to say thank you to the Black Cultural Center on behalf of us. Because, like we said, we've said it again, but we'll continue to say it. This event would not be possible without the Black Cultural Center for Nova Scotia.
Absolutely not, and Riel has helped out big time, you know, doing those interviews for us, saves us from having to run back and forth, and you know, having dignitary like Anthony Sherwood right in front of us right now. Got to remind him that this is live television. And
you can give your mic to me. Yeah, sure.
And
we've spoken before.
You got to pardon my broadcast partner. She's having an ongoing conversation with the most famous actor on these grounds right now.
Yeah, and a special thank you to Russell Gross for involving East Lincoln in this. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I know thank you to our whole crew. They've been standing out in the sun. You guys are beautiful.
Well, I'll just say that this is the most important event I've ever been personally involved with, and I'm so glad to have been a part of it, and I hope that all our viewers have enjoyed it. And, you know, like you said, we want to thank Russell Gross for involving Eastlink in this particular event in the first place. I'm pretty sure that he had other options, but he chose the best one.
Of course he chose the best one. So one thing I did like was that they tackled a lot of uncomfortable subjects.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do to make real change.
Well, the other flip side of that coin is that it's not the black community that's able to make that change.
Yeah.
It's the wider community that has to not only chip in, but they've got to walk forward with both feet and make a commitment to anti-black racist efforts. And, you know, we'll take it from there. They'll get our assistance, but we need them to help us out.
That's right. Well, Cecil, I think it's time to wrap it up.
Well, you've done a great job. It's always a pleasure working with you, Morgan.
It's always a pleasure working with you. Thank you so much for watching the National Apology to the No. 2 Construction Battalion. We will see you on the next one.